There we go. Just got to mute it so it doesn't blow out my ears. There we go. Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to the We Geek podcast, the podcast where we take a piece of geek culture and we show why we absolutely love it. Sometimes that's tough love, but for the most part, we show why we love it, and today is no exception. People might remember last year, me and Brenton of BPV Gaming, as well as Alex, got together to do an episode based on Nintendo, just the company Nintendo, and you guys went nuts. Loved it. It was pure nostalgia. It did everything for you guys' heartstrings, and so I decided, you know what? We're going to do this again, except we're going to narrow the focus a little bit. And it turns out that we had a game come out from Nintendo in November. And so here we are today as we are taking on a We Geek based on the lovable franchise known as Pokemon, in honor of the most recent addition to the franchise, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee edition. And of course, I am not alone on the We Geek podcast. I'm being joined by fellow YouTubers, fellow geeks, fellow awesome people in general. And if you guys aren't following their content, what the heck is wrong with you? You really should be doing that. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first panelist in the only way Pokemon I can possibly do so. And let's just go ahead and introduce her. She wants to be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is her real test, and to train them is her cause. She will travel across the land, searching far and wide to teach Pokemon to understand the power that's inside. Shaytari, you gotta catch them all. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm having an interesting day because we're going to go nuts on Pokemon. There's going to be tons of theme here. As you guys can obviously tell, it felt only appropriate to give one of these guys this intro to actually pull out one of the best anime openings ever. And therefore, Shaytari actually gets it because, well, let's just be honest about it. We brought on a Pokemon expert here because the bottom line is she actually is going to be covering content we don't, the rest of the panel doesn't necessarily follow. And one of your fans actually reached out to me and said, if you ever do this, she is the Pokemon expert and therefore you must have her on.
I'm glad I'm considered a Pokemon expert.
I would tell you who it was, but sadly this was a while ago and I lost the email. So sorry about that. And then the second panelist that we actually have is, well, he knows that everybody wants to be a master and everybody wants to show their skills and everybody wants to get there faster to make their way to the top of the hill. And each time he tries, he's going to get just a little bit better. And each step he climbs is just one more step up the ladder. It's a whole new world the Shadow Blazer lives in. Alex, how you doing today?
Well, you could have gone with we all live in a Pokemon world, which is my second favorite theme out of the Pokemon franchise.
Our third panelist was going to get that. So,
oh, chill, thanks anyway. But I
thought Johto Jerry's was your favorite one.
No, the original's still always going to be that favorite. But besides that, I still have the warm spot in my heart for the Orange Islands theme.
We all live in a Pokemon world.
Yeah, well, that's still like my second.
That's actually surprising considering that when we actually get to the Gen content, I mean, you've kind of mentioned this on Geek News as well as other places. Gen 2 is your fond favorite.
Yeah, spoiler alert for later in this podcast, I'm sure, but thank you for the intro anyway. Yeah, I'm doing very well.
Yeah, we unfortunately we're going to have a third panelist, but unfortunately things just kind of happened and he actually he's in the middle of college, people, so I'm not necessarily going to hold it against him, but he forgot that we were recording today, and he actually bought movie tickets so he could take his family out. And so at that point, we hope you are having a great day, Brenton Volley of BPV Gaming, but unfortunately, we got to get these going. What?
Only he can forget about it. Meanwhile, I'm having anxiety dreams about it. I'm like, oh crap, I'm late for the podcast. I literally had this dream last night.
It's only funny because it's true. No, we love Brenton, but yeah, unfortunately, the one thing I've kind of learned with Brenton, and then we'll actually get into this podcast is, if you if you try to catch him in the middle of a semester, he is, and this is probably the case for all of us when we were in college. We are just like, we're not there. We are so worried about exams and assignments and everything like that we have just become like absolute flakes. And we will forget that like we had a dentist appointment or we had a doctor's appointment or we had this or we had that. And it's not because, you know, we're trying to be flaky. It's because we have too many things on our mind. And so at that point, like maybe if we caught Brinton a week later, we might have been able to avoid this. But nonetheless, we are talking about the wonderful, amazing, mystical, fantastical world of Pokemon. And well, we have a tradition here on the podcast to ask this first question. And it's appropriate here considering how big the franchise in 25 plus years has grown to be. It's actually considered to be one of Nintendo's most notable franchises, considering its growth as well as its rivaling of the two oldest franchises that Nintendo has. And it is a rival. Don't ever kid yourself, guys. It is a rival to them. Legend of Zelda and Mario are in contention with Pokemon now, and so much so that where Mario used to be like the trademark logo of Nintendo, like he would be everywhere on it, he's been subtly replaced by Pikachu because of this. So much so that we are now getting a game based off of a detective that is a Pikachu, as well as a live action movie that looks really weird, and CG Psyduck will continue to give me nightmares. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and ask this first question. What was your first introduction to Pokemon, and what was the moment that got you hooked as a Pokemon fan? Now, for me, this is actually kind of an odd one where I'm probably going to get laughed out by the panel because I was a year late to the Pokemon craze. When Pokemon launched, or at least, correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, the games launched and then the anime launched, right?
I think they launched roughly the same time.
Yeah.
Pretty much both in Japan and North America.
So at that point, like, I was up in a rural area of Idaho. And so when I got to like a Walmart, which was kind of a luxury thing, it was like 40 minutes away, and you had to like really convince my mom to be able to actually drive us out there. And so I got to see like little hintings here and there of the Pocket Monster craze happening. So much so that one of my aunts bought me a Tamagotchi, and we all know how that turned out. My first ever Tamagotchi where the pet died 6 times before I actually tried. And people think I'm kidding when I said 6. I'm not. The thing kept track. So I'm literally going off of its testimony. But that was kind of my deal, is like I got little bits of exposure here and there. But when I came back to where I'm living now in Salt Lake City, that's when the craze hit me like a brick wall, because everybody was doing it. It was like Pogs. All right. Like, how many people here know what Pogs are?
I remember Pogs. Remember Alf? He's back in Pog form too.
But Pogs, like, they kind of skipped me, and I was here when that happened. Like, I joined that one late too, but this one I joined really, really late. And so my first exposure was the anime. And it wasn't even like the first episode. It was the episode where Ash catches a primate, because that was the newest episode on Kids WB at the time. So at that point, like, my first exposure to Pokemon is him catching a Pokemon that I don't really care about. And I'm like, okay, well, this is still kind of a cute and cuddly anime. I'll continue to watch it. And then people brought to me, oh yeah, there's video games. Wait, what? There are video games on this thing? Yeah, they're made by Nintendo too. What? And people, you got to realize, like, my love for Nintendo was peaked because I had exposure to Ocarina of Time around this point. And so I'm like, Nintendo can do no wrong. And therefore, I picked up Pokemon Red and Blue, dropped them until a year later, and then picked up Pokemon Yellow. And that was my first ever exposure. And what made me a Pokemon fan from Gen 1 was being able to haul around a Pikachu, and not Red and Blue, where some of the designs for the Pokemon are just plain weird. That's just the way it goes. Shay Tari, what was your first exposure to Pokemon, and what made you a fan?
My first exposure was actually when I was in like 3rd grade, I think, 2nd or 3rd grade. And I remember we had to plant a plant, basically. And these group of boys in our class presented their plant, and they had a name for it, and it was named Geodude, and it was named after a Pokemon. And at the time, I had no idea what Pokemon was, but I was like, what is this Geodude they're talking about? And then I happened to catch an episode on Kids WB when it aired on Saturday mornings. That's when they always aired the newest episode. And I think I happened to catch the very first episode of it. I think it was doing reruns at the time. And I immediately fell in love with it. And every Saturday morning had to watch every single episode. I had a Game Boy at the time, so I ended up buying Pokemon Blue, and I played it completely through. My brother and I actually both played it because I was the only one that had a Game Boy. So that was when, you know, Game Boy Colors were big, and that was when there was no light. So we had to play the game at night, sometimes in the car by street lamps as we passed under them in the car, and having to make sure that we saved the game if the battery was getting low on my Game Boy. And then from there, I had Pokemon Yellow. And then I even had, I remember when they came out with the Pikachu plushie that talked, and the ears moved and the cheeks lit up. And I had it, and I dragged it everywhere with me. There's actually a picture of me in Vegas when I was like 9 years old with my family. And I have the Pikachu in my hand because I dragged it everywhere, and I refused.
Wait! You're saying the little red ones light up, and does it talk?
It talked. It was like Pikachu.
Oh
and
my
you
gosh!
press the buttons on the hands, and it was heavy because it had batteries in it.
You're not going to believe this. My Walmart just barely re-released them. Me and my wife are considering getting one for my daughter.
Oh my God, I have it, and I remember I ended up finding it. It doesn't work even if I put batteries in it. And it's not yellow anymore. It's like a dingy gray. And the ear has a hole in it.
So it's Pikachu, Five Nights at Freddy's edition.
It is. It's so bad. I had the books for it. I even had the Nintendo 64 game for it for Pokemon Snap. I never got Stadium. And this was like when they had the books that had the cheat codes in them. And my brother and I learned how to get to Mew in Pokemon Snap. We had the trading cards, but we never actually like really played the trading card game. We just collected them. And we had like the holographic Charizard. We had holographic Kabutops. We had all of the different games there were. And I was completely hooked on Pokemon to the point where I remember my stepsister and I used to play house all the time. And I was never the typical kid where I was like, I want to be the mom or the dad. My character was always, I want to be a Pokemon trainer. That is who I am in the house.
I love it.
So at that point, you're like, your friend there is like, I'm gonna be the mom, I'm gonna cook things, and you're like, I'm 10, and I leave the house.
Exactly. That was my character, and they used to get so mad because I wasn't playing by the rules per se, but I was like, I don't care. This is my character. I'm gone. I'm leaving the house. And I was that kid. I was hooked on it. I dragged my parents to go see Pokemon, the first movie, in theaters. When they were selling the gold-plated Pokemon little discs at Burger King with the toys that came with them inside of the Pokeball.
Yeah, they were like mini
like
Pokemon trading cards. Yeah.
They gave, it was like trading cards, but it was like a little gold plated. It was like literally a collector's item. And it was the only time as a kid that I wanted to go to Burger King because I was a McDonald's child. And I was like, we have to go to Burger King because I want the Pokemon toys. And that was been the only time Burger King had signs out on the drive-thrus that said they were sold out of Pokemon toys because they had so many in there. So yeah, I was hooked on Pokemon as a kid, and even as a little bit of as an adult, I got hooked on it a little bit.
That was actually going to be my next question. Is like you said, you the second you watched the first episode of the anime, are you still watching to this day?
I'm not, and that's only because I got confused with the episodes. So I went back at one point and rewatched the episodes up until I want to say Black and White 2. It was definitely when they had introduced Iris as a character. And I really like her.
That's the little girl, right?
That's the little girl.
Okay.
And I got introduced to that point. And so I knew a lot of the Pokemon at that point. But I'm more, I think, caught up on the movies more so than I am as far as the episodes are concerned, and also more caught up on the games also.
The other thing that we should also point out, this is the reason that she got pointed out as a Pokemon expert, everybody, as she plays, and we don't, even though like I made a promise years ago to do so. You have played Pokemon Go. So at that point, you are officially more of a fan than us.
I still play Pokemon Go. My boyfriend and I participate in the community days. We play them all the time. We both play Let's Go.
And I'm not bringing that up just to say like, oh my gosh, she's much more of a geek or anything like that. No, that's dedication right there. Is like, I love fans who will basically go into anything that is Pokemon, or we're using Pokemon as the example here, but anything that is Pokemon related simply because of that brand, because of that distinction. And they're still fans of it to this day. Like, my podcast covered a lot of the weird happenings of Pokemon Go. And that's kind of like made me go, I don't know if I want to do this because I don't want to be I don't want to have those issues or anything like that. But the other thing is that I'm an old fart and me spending that much time on my mobile phone would probably drive me insane. But the fact is like that is a phenomenon in and of itself. That's basically a reimagining of like what happened in the 90s when Gen 1 was released.
Yeah.
Because to the like what is the generation they just barely released on Go? It's like up to 4.
They just released Gen 4. They just released Gen 4.
I mean, you already have like that already puts the number at 400 Pokemon that are available out in Pokemon Go.
Yeah, and there's even some from previous generations that aren't yet released in the game. Like Smeagol, I believe is the name. I might be saying it wrong. Has not yet been released in the game. They just released Shedinja into the game as well. So there's a lot of Pokemon that they don't know how to release into the game. Yeah. The same for Spinda in all its forms. Like they just started releasing Spinda into the game and they're just releasing it gradually. So there's Pokemon in there whose coding is there, but they're just not out yet.
All right. And so there you go. We have me and Shay answered. Alex, what was your first exposure to Pokemon and what was the moment that made you a Pokemon fan?
Well, it's a little hazy for me because the most clear memory I remember, and I remember a little bit, but the most clear memory I remember, of course, is getting my copy of Pokemon Blue and a Game Boy Color for probably my 11th birthday. But I also can't say for sure that I didn't see the anime before then. I mean, something obviously prompted my parents to say, oh, this would be good for him for his birthday. So I might have also seen the anime at this time too. Might have just been a happy coincidence that I got to see both. And I remember the first episode of the anime I saw, which was Battle Aboard the St. Anne. And that I'm not sure I remember. Now, for the game, back on the games here, of course, I remember getting Pokemon Blue for my birthday. And I played that game to all the way to the end, constantly back and forth. I'd start new games all the time. And then, of course, I got Pokemon Yellow for Christmas when that came out. And that led into Pokemon Gold and Silver. I got Silver. And later that transitioned into Crystal, which transitioned to Ruby and Sapphire. And the story goes on from there, of course.
Which is another thing that I find funny here, because Shay, you brought up that you did this with your brother. Guess who else did that with his sister?
Yeah, my older sister.
I know because I got to watch this kind of happen. And to this day, I'm married to his sister. She won't do it with me. She only does it with him. So like, I actually reached out to her. I'm like, so I'm going to get Pokemon Let's Go Eevee edition. Do you want to go ahead and get a Pokemon or you want to get the Pikachu edition? And then she's like, I don't know, Alex, what are you going to do? Like, what am I,
it's true.
Liver?
Ever since my sister got Red, we've always gotten the opposite corresponding versions of each other. She gave me
I shared one version.
Yes, well,
she's so bossy about it.
Well, and what's funny is like, so he got Silver version because Gold version was actually got by me for her. Ooh. So like, I got her that because I knew she was genuinely interested. And let me just point something out for the record. When you are learning how to date and you're like the person that you want to date is a gamer, flowers don't necessarily work
Video games do.
Video games do, and CDs do, and that's the way to my wife's heart was through her Game Boy cartridge slot, I guess is the best way to put it. So at that point, like I knew that they did this because I countered it too. I also got silver so that her and me could do that, and then found out about the fact that she held this tradition with her brother.
Yeah.
See, for me, it was separate. For me, it was like the tradition that you guys have was a tradition that unknowingly me and my boyfriend had. So when blue and red were out, I had blue, he had red. Granted, I didn't know my boyfriend at the time. I ended up having gold. He had silver, and we always had corresponding games. So when Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee came out, it was decided that I would get Eevee and he would get Pikachu.
Well, in the way that I actually tried to shoehorn my way into this triangle, and we've never actually talked on this, so this is a legit thing. I'm gonna admit it. I was a little jealous of the fact that these guys like did this whole system. Like she would go to Alex and go, okay, what version do you want? And usually he'd pick it based off of, which one was coolest or whatever. And then she'd be like, okay, I'll go get the opposite version. All right. And that's what they did. So I would try to shoehorn my way into this little thing by getting the third games for a while. So like yellow was my thing. And then eventually when crystal happened, even though I had a copy of silver, I turned in my copy of silver for crystal. So I could say like, oh, okay, well, I'm part of this, even though I haven't really said it to anybody. I'm part of this too. And I did that with all the way up until third versions weren't even being done.
Yeah.
So at that point, like, I remember me and my wife talking about Diamond and Pearl and me just kind of sitting there going, well, I'd probably go this way, but I don't even know. I don't even have a 3DS at this point, so I don't know if I'm going to get it. And then eventually when I got my 3DS, I'm like, oh, well, screw you guys. Platinum! And I just kept that whole tradition going. But yeah, so this is going to be an interesting day. Anyway, Alex, so you were kind of explaining where you started.
Yeah, and so when basically, it was just each game. And of course, I was watching the anime in tandem, pretty much as the Kanto arc was going on. And I followed that up pretty much through the Johto arc. And I think it was only by Hoenn I really stopped watching. But yeah, that's kind of my story, is how I got into the series. Was I got lucky, I got a gift, and my sister also got hard into Pokemon. And we just have continued ever since. If I can maybe elaborate a little further here, I actually did kind of fall out of the franchise for a little while after Ruby and Sapphire, but I kind of came back, and I think it was either Gen 3 with Fire-Led with Leaf Green, or it was Gen 4 with Soul Silver. One of the two is what kind of brought me back.
So, and that's the other thing that was really cool too, that they eventually started doing, was not only were they doing these gens, but they finally looked back and said, Gen 1's looking kind of old right now. Let's update it. And therefore we got Fire Red and Leaf Green. I mean, now we have Pikachu and Eevee editions, which is basically yellow. So you can get that in a much more modern context. But I did like the fact and loved that Tajiri and Game Freak understood that there was such love for these franchises that if you had gone backwards and actually brought a gen up to speed, that would be an equally popular seller. So I applaud for them being able to do that. So the next question that I want to get into is, there are so many facets of Pokemon now. So you have the plushie collecting, because you brought that up. That's a legit thing. I didn't even realize it is, but apparently there was actually talks for a while. I don't know if it ever officially happened, where the Beanie Babies guys, I think it's Tai is the company name. They were going to launch a Pokemon line. And from what I understand on it, it never got off the ground, but they were talking about doing it. So Pokemon plushies is definitely a thing. You have games like solid followers of the games. And by that, I mean, like, they follow just the gens and maybe even the retroactive gens, but that's about it. Then there are what I'd like to call Game Plus, where they will actually go out and play all the offshoots of the games along with the gens. So like these guys would hardcore play Pokemon Snap, hardcore play Pokemon Stadium, all that stuff. You also have the diehard followers of the anime. We now have a whole new facet with Pokemon Go. And so the question is basically, of these facets, like, where do you find yourself the most of a hardcore fan when it comes to being a Pokemon fan? I have to be honest here, and mine is probably going to be the dorkiest answer ever, but I mean, my first love with Pokemon was the games. And so in a lot of cases, I love the games, and I always am willing enough to, even though I haven't finished a gen past 3, it's always something that is on my mind that I want to go and do, because like 3 was around the time when storytelling was a legit thing in Pokemon. And so I've always wanted to go back and see the stories that they were trying to tell in those gens. And I never have the time, but I will eventually try and figure that crap out. But the gen games are always where I have to go to. This is why in a lot of cases, Pikachu and Eevee is such a big deal to me, because I don't know, like Alex can probably count the years I have been saying and screaming for this long, I want a Pokemon gen on a console, because that's where I've played RPGs most of my life. I don't have a problem playing handheld, but I get like that really bad crick in the neck because I don't play games for anything less than 2 hours. So at that point, you get those nasty cricks in the neck and it sucks. But at that point, like, I have this love for the gens, and that's never going to go away. I mean, for crying out loud, I am so appreciative of the gens. They indoctrinated whole new generations of RPG lovers, and they didn't even know they did. So like, as a Final Fantasy fan, as a Kingdom Hearts fan, as a Ultima fan, like, I now can talk with other people about RPGs. I just, I'm talking about a more simplistic one. So yeah, I've been a hardcore lover of the gens specifically. Alex, where would you say you fall in the Pokemon spectrum, as it were?
Yeah, I'm still really much into the games. That's still where I think my passion lies, even though, yes, I was really hardcore into the anime for a long time, but I did grow tired of it after a while. But I still love playing the games. I still love going back. I like even going back to the old school Red, Blue, Yellow, and Crystal, which I just finished up not too long ago. I was playing Crystal again on my 3DS, which, hey, by the way, speaking of, I got the Pokemon version of 3DS.
You do, actually, yeah.
Yeah, I got the special version of for when X and Y was released. So that's where I like to still keep up with the games. I still like to see what they're coming out with. And I also should have mentioned, I did play a lot of the spin-offs, the early spin-off games like Snap, like Stadium. I had fun with those. So that would be my case. I'm still very much part of the game scene. And I did play a little bit of the trading cards, but my friends, although they kind of got into Pokemon a little bit early, they didn't stay much for long. So once I had nobody to really play the trading card game is, because I had no idea that leagues and tournaments were a thing. Plus, I never actually played by the official card game rules. Right? We just kind of played kind of by our own rules, essentially. Not total. I wouldn't say we totally strayed, but it's we didn't follow hard and fast with deck shuffling and making sure to have proper energy stacks for special moves. We just said, okay, I'm going to use this move, and so we didn't really play hardcore fast by the rules. So even if I knew about the leagues, I doubt I would have lasted long.
That sounds to me like when me and my friends were really hardcore into Yu-Gi-Oh! And so at that point, we played by what we called Duelist Kingdom rules. And the main reason, and for those who don't know what that is basically there were no rules. Mm-hmm. Okay, the Duelist Kingdom and Yu-Gi-Oh! Was to show off the card game and to be able to show all of the cool things that you could summon. And so at that point, things like sacrificing monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Came in Battle City. There was nothing before that point, so Kaiba could literally pull out a Blue Eyes and just slap it on the field, kind of deal. So it sounds to me like that's pretty much what you were doing with Pokemon. Is we weren't worrying about energy stacking or anything like that. We were just playing the game. Which for a lot of people is probably gonna be like, hardcore, you shouldn't do that. It takes the fun out of the game. But to them, it was it legitimately was. So with that, Shay Tari, what part of this Pokemon spectrum are you more solidly a member of? You're the Pokemon expert here. That's all right.
I feel like this might sound I feel like I fall under almost all of them a little bit, because I do enjoy the whole plushie collecting. I mean, I have a Pichu right here, plushie, and I have a Togepi plushie
Wow, it
And
is such a good thing my daughter's not here. She would be reaching into the screen to grab them from you.
and I have an Umbreon and a Sylveon plushie also, but I think they're in storage.
All
But
right.
granted, I do, but that's just because for me, I just love plushies in general. I mean, like if you saw my bed right now, it's covered in plushies because I love them so much. As far as the games are concerned, I've played almost all the Pokemon games. I've played red, blue. No, I played blue, yellow, gold, sapphire. I have X or Y, one of them. I also have Sun. I have Moon. I'm sorry. And of course, I have Let's Go. And then I've also played like Pokemon Snap. I played Pokemon Pinball, which was for Game Boy.
Oh, that was fun.
The game that had the Rumble Pack, one of the first ones. I used to love that game.
Yep.
And I've also am a fan of the anime just because of the nostalgia factor for me. So I'll still go back and watch like Pokemon the first movie. And there's certain Pokemon episodes I can go back and watch, like Pikachu's Goodbye. Like there's certain episodes I have to go back and watch. And then of course, everyone knows I play Pokemon Go. But I guess if I have to choose one of them, I would probably have to say Pokemon Go, because it definitely fulfilled that that fantasy of me wanting to be a Pokemon trainer as a kid and wanting to go out and catch Pokemon. And it got me a lot more into learning about the games a little bit more, like how I didn't know that, you know, for a long time that shiny Pokemon existed within the games, but that they were really hard to get and that you weren't for sure how to get them and that it was very, very random. And it just took me back to being a kid again and wanting to go out there and catch Pokemon and just learning a lot more about how Pokemon Go, Pokemon Go involved a lot of the Pokemon community and even invited those that had never known about Pokemon and got them out there playing the game and learning more about just the franchise in general. So
I need to send you a video because one of the things I have found the most hilarious is, so I don't think Shay knows this, Alex knows this, but I also do a pro wrestling podcast. And one of the things that I found really funny is when the Pokemon Go craze hit, pretty much every wrestler that was on the active WWE roster was playing it.
Yeah.
we're talking people who have been like 30-year veterans of pro wrestling. Okay. So like one of my favorite videos to go watch, and this is the one I'll send to you, is when Xavier Woods of Up, Up, Down, Down on YouTube, he actually went and tracked down Dustin Rhodes, aka Gold Dust, who was a hardcore Pokemon Go player. Now, we're talking a guy who's like, I might be getting his age wrong, but when he was at his hype, or like the highest point of his career, I think he was in his 30s. So at that point, he's like in his 60s now, and he hardcore plays Pokemon Gold with his daughters.
Yep.
Okay. That's how nuts the Pokemon Go craze was. And the funniest part about the whole thing is he knew more about Pokemon Go in some cases than Xavier Woods did. Like he already knew workarounds of how being able to send out a Pokeball just with that little extra bit of flair so that you can get that Pokemon. He knew how to do that. The 60-year-old dude was educating Xavier Woods on it. Or I might be remembering that wrong. But like this was a guy who's like, I know where to go and get like the best Rattata. I know where to be able to go out and get like the best Pokemon in this area. And, you know, I already go to the gym anyway, so I can go out and get all of these things. It's the most amazing thing ever.
Yeah, that's literally how like Pokemon Go was, and actually like still is for me. Like when Pokemon Go came out, I was at work. I was at my job, and at the time I worked in retail, and at the time I actually worked for, I'll just say it, I worked for the Apple Store, and my entire coworkers were all playing Pokemon Go. And at the time I was a technician, and there would be people who would come with their phones, and they're like, 1 second, there's a Charmander I have to catch. They're like, all right, it's no problem. I'm going to catch it with you. Is that okay? Like, that's literally how it was. And even now when like me and my boyfriend go out for community days and we'll go out and like catch Pokemon, there will be families of people together catching Pokemon, and some of them with like 2 or 3 phones with an iPad. And I've even seen like a married couple together catching Pokemon, and they're
Sure.
like in their 70s, and I'm like, they are into this, and they're like, I know what I'm doing, I'm at level 40, I can't go any higher, and I'm like, you are above me.
So this is the guy I was talking about. Now I want you to see this image whenever you think of like Pokemon Go. This guy plays Pokemon Go. It's like the greatest thing ever. I love him dearly. He's actually a really good wrestler. But anyway, yeah. The other thing I also want to point out that I think is very interesting from both you and Alex, because Alex has kind of said something very similar to you in the past. Again, one of the reasons I love Pokemon is because it basically indoctrinated a whole new generation of RPG players, except they don't realize that it did, because to you, like, playing Pokemon is not an RPG. Okay. So like for me, like going out and playing Dragon Warriors, I am the knight that's going to go slay the dragon and save the princess and all that. For you is, I'm going to go out as a trainer and go see the world and collect all these Pokemon, take on gym leaders, and be able to show like my mastery at battling, at contests, things like that. And so at that point, you don't look at it like an RPG. You look at it as its own kind of genre, which it technically kind of is. I mean, for crying out loud, Warcraft did it. In their game, yes, you can go and collect battle pets in World of Warcraft, and it's basically WoW Pokemon. The joke in the game is WoW came on, because that's basically what it is. And that's one of the coolest aspects of Pokemon, is that it basically brought people in. And then when they try out, like, let's just say for the sake of argument, somebody hands them a Final Fantasy game and they go like, oh, this looks way too complicated. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pick it up. I've seen this numerous times happen. They'll pick up Final Fantasy VII or something like that and go, wait, this isn't actually as hard as I thought it was. This actually kind of plays like Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they're like, there's this whole slew of games that are now accessible to me, and I didn't even realize that they were. That's the cool part of Pokemon to me.
Yeah.
Not necessarily just like the cute and cuddly animals, but the fact that you found Game Freak and Nintendo found a way to be able to bring people into, at that time, was one of Japan's most popular genres and franchises. And now to this day, it is still the most popular. It's rivaling Zelda, for crying out loud. The other one that gets called an RPG.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, the next question that we have to get into is, and this is going to be three-pronged because people have already asked this and it's going to have to be asked, is what is your favorite Pokemon? Now I'm going to break this up into three. All right. Because for crying out loud, there's too many at this point. Are we at 1,000 yet, Alex?
I don't quite think so, but I'm sure we're close.
We
have to be close. Like we're at 7 generations. We have to be close to 1,000.
I think
so
there's 802 in all. 802 Pokemon.
That's close. So at that point, I'm going to say favorite Pokemon, but with a twist. Favorite cute type of Pokemon. So like the purpose of the model is to be cute and cuddly. I'm going to call this the battler type, because it's basically like a lot of people when they're hardcore battlers like me, they tend to want to go to the Pokemon that look more badass, as opposed to like, they might have a Pikachu in there, but Jigglypuff they're probably not having unless it's in Smash Bros. And then they want to troll everybody. So like the battler type, which is like you're the most badass looking, and then obviously we have to do this. Favorite legendary Pokemon, because legendary Pokemon are also a big staple of the series, and so much so that like I've heard battle restrictions of like no legendaries or legendary only, stuff like that. So for that, I'll just go ahead and go cutest Pokemon. I'm not necessarily a fan of cute Pokemon, but if I had to have one, it'd be my boy Pikachu, because hey, he's a dude, bro. And I could get along with him just fine. Especially in the fact that I haven't officially put out the video yet, but you guys will see I've actually kind of gotten a little bit of a love for Detective Pikachu. And just because it's a sheer reminder to me of the Ace Attorney series. And so it's like, I kind of hope there's a sequel to this game. So like, if I had to have a cute Pokemon, it would be Pikachu, with his love of ketchup and everything.
Yes.
Except I'd probably go out to the anime and get that Surfer Pikachu, the one that sounds like it probably needs to be on one of those little throat things. It's like Pikachu. I always like that. I was like, he's got smoker voice. My favorite badass Pokemon, and it's been this way for many, many years, is basically the first one I ever came across that actually hooked me on Pokemon. And that's my boy Scyther. Because I literally looked at that model. I'm like, dude, he has swords for hands. Sign me up.
And yet cannot learn fly.
And he cannot learn fly. That's the dumbest thing ever, but he can't. But
meanwhile, Blue's up there flying on a Spearow.
I know, right? So the funniest thing about the anime is like I started with Ash catching a Primate and going, oh man, these still look way too cute and cuddly. And then I came across the episode. I don't remember what the name is, but it's got the two rival gangs with an Electabuzz and a Scyther. And as soon as I saw Scyther, I'm like, that Pokemon has swords for arms. Sign me up! You know, like at that point, I was immediately hooked on Pokemon. I'm like, I need to find every badass looking Pokemon ever. So for me, the battler type has got to be my boy Scyther. And for my favorite legendary Pokemon, this is not going to technically count, but I have to do it because it should be a Pokemon, damn it. Mewtwo in armor! That armor was cool! Why has that never been done? Not even Go has done this.
No.
Do you know how many people would flock to Pokemon Go if they could go out to Times Square and battle a Mewtwo with armor?
Well, you don't battle in Pokemon Go. You just throw a ball and get lucky.
I know.
I don't care. If Pokemon Go gave me Mewtwo with armor, I'd be signed up right now.
Doesn't count. It's wearing armor. It's fake. Fake Mewtwo.
All right. So, Shayturi, your favorite cute Pokemon, your favorite battler Pokemon, and your favorite legendary Pokemon.
I have to say my favorite cute Pokemon is, oh God, this is hard. I like all the cute cuddly ones. Oh. I think I'd have to go with Eevee because Eevee is adorable. I love Eevee. Before, my favorite was Pikachu, and I still have a love for Pikachu. And once again, Pikachu's love of ketchup. But just because it's hilarious, it's hilarious. It's a thing,
people. Look it up.
It is. I talk about it in my Detective Pikachu trailer video. I talk about Pikachu's love of ketchup, but I love Eevee. Eevee is so cute, so cuddly. And I like that you can evolve it into other cuddly Pokemon also that are also pretty badass.
I didn't even know this, but apparently among Pokemon fans, Eevee has been relabeled the Taste the Rainbow Pokemon because of all of the various evolutions now he has.
7. I think
somebody actually sent me I don't have it with me right now, but somebody sent me a meme via Reddit of basically Eevee with a big old rainbow behind it going, taste the rainbow, bitches. Like, wow. And here's the thing, it's not wrong.
No. My favorite battler Pokemon. I kind of want to go with Blastoise because Squirtle was always my favorite starter in the first gen games. I always chose Squirtle. Yeah. And I always liked Blastoise because it just wreaked havoc on every Pokemon I went against after a while. And then for favorite legendary, oh man, favorite legendary. Oh, this is difficult.
I'm just saying for both of you, if either you pick a Reggie, you're immediately getting the joke.
Oh no, those are the worst ones.
My body is ready.
I hate it when they were in the game for Pokemon Go.
Again, another favorite meme of mine is somebody found like a Reggie from the anime and put Reggie Fils-Aimé's face on it, going, "My body is ready." Yeah, that's appropriate.
I think my favorite legendary is, oh man.
So you have to think about it, because like
You
legendaries
do.
are not that like a lot of people think that legendaries take up a good portion of the map. They really don't. For every game, there's roughly 4 to 5 legendaries that are put in, because you always have the obligatory 3 legendary that are all themed around each other. So, for example, if people don't realize, like Gen 1, it's the birds. So Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno all are based around another element, but they're all birds. The Reggies obviously are another one that is an example of that. But then you have the outlier like Mewtwo, who's supposed to be like the trademark of that gen kind of thing.
Then you have Mew, and then you have the legendary dogs like Entei.
Yep. Which by the way, my wife gave me endless crap for calling them the legendary cats, because to me they still look like cats.
They're neither cats nor dogs. They're just beasts.
They are beasts. But the other thing that I like to point out is that, Gen 4 had the gall to actually create a literal equivalent of God and Satan in the Pokemon canon, because you have Arceus, and then I'll probably murder this name. It's like Giratina or Giratina.
Giratina. Yeah.
So at that point,
they just had him in Pokemon Go. He was just the legendary.
Yeah. So at that point, like, you literally have Poke God and Poke Satan. It happens.
I think I have to go with Entei as one of my favorite legendaries. And the reason why is because I remember playing, was it Pokemon? I think it was Gold. I think that they introduced Entei into the game. I believe, I might be wrong about this.
Entei, he was one of the beasts. So Gold, Silver, Crystal, because he was with Reiko and Suicune.
Yes. So I remember, because I will never forget, I was in the grass in the game and I encountered Entei and I was so happy. And then it ran. Then it ran away from me and I couldn't catch it again.
See, I thought this was going to have a similar ending to how Alex has had it happen, where it's like he's encountered he's encountered Entei or Reiko, and all of a sudden is like, and he casts Roar. And since he's playing on an emulator, he can't get him again.
Well,
I was so mad. I was playing on my Game Boy.
Okay, I've told you before, Adam. It's not a problem with emulators. It's the problem with Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, because there's a bug where they use Roar and then they've never seen again. It's a problem with anything that's a wandering Pokemon in that game. The real problem with Gen 2, and I think Gen 1 had this problem as well, was status inflictions did not actually help with catch rates like they were supposed to because of programming oversights.
Yeah. All right, so we have Pikachu, Scyther, and Armored Mewtwo for me. We have
Armored Mewtwo's not real.
I don't care. It's real to me.
It's not real.
If you really want me to pick another one, then I'm gonna go ahead and go with. If you want me to pick another one, Alex, just so that I can stick with the canon, I'm gonna go ahead and go with Groudon, because basically he is Poke Godzilla.
Yeah.
Is Pokezilla. So like I said, you have these. We have Eevee. We have Blastoise, and we also have Entei. And by the way, we should probably clarify, not the Cthulhian horror Entei from the third movie. Not that one. Not that already raises too many questions. Alex, your favorite cute Pokemon, your favorite battler Pokemon, and your favorite legendary Pokemon.
Okay. Favorite cute Pokemon would be... Hold on. I had it.
See, he's gotten prepared. He has the Pokedex lined up. I'm answering the question.
My favorite cute is the Poplio line from Sun and Moon. Because everybody gave that Pokemon such crap when it was announced for some reason, but it's adorable. It's a little seal. It's a little seal that's like a clown.
Oh, is that the water starter?
Yes, that's the water starter for Sun and Moon. So that's my favorite cute. Favorite battling. In terms of hardcore strategy, that's a little harder, but I will say I did try out Skarmory for the first time in my most recent playthrough of Pokemon Crystal, and I actually really liked playing with Skarmory. He's a real tank. He can take hits. He can really stand up to to stuff
I've
except
actually
fire
been getting
attacks.
a lot of crap in my Emerald playthrough. There's like, you had an opportunity as Skarmory and you didn't take it. What the F is wrong with you? And it was because I already had like a viable steel and a flying type at that point. And then later on, I'm like, oh, I could merge them. And then I could get Skarmory, and I never did.
Yes, good type coverage there, except for fire. Don't put them up against fire. But steel is great because it resists pretty much everything.
Yeah, because steel type just basically raises defense through the roof.
Yeah. So, in terms of legendary Pokemon, my favorite would probably be Zapdos. Another kind of favorite typing of mine is electric types. I always like those. And I always really just like the setting of where you go to find Zapdos, because you go to the abandoned power plant that's tucked away over in the corner there, just underneath the rock tunnel. And you go find this bird that's just sitting in a power plant. I always like that. So Zapdos would be my favorite legendary Pokemon.
All right. So we have some viable ones that we can actually get into there. So the next question that I actually have here, it goes back to the anime, which all of us have watched at those given moments. And so the next question that I actually have is, well, it's connected to both the anime as well as to the games, because another thing that's beloved from the Pokemon franchise isn't necessarily its protagonists, but the gym leaders. The gym leaders always have a personality that just makes them stand out to specific players. And so for you, your favorite and least favorite gym leader. And that becomes difficult for me because I haven't really experienced a lot of the later ones, and I've been told, like, this guy you would love, and this guy you would hate. For example, Iris's dad, I've been told I would love him because he basically is what's his bucket from James Bond? Steel Jaw.
Oh, Jaws.
Jaws, yeah, where he's got like this big old dragon type bone for a mouth. Is like, oh yeah, you would totally love him. And I've never actually come across the guy, but if I had to say like my favorite gym leader that they've made over the years and that I've had experience to, it'd have to be Watts. Watts is just a cute and cuddly Santa Claus-like old man that likes to zap you into oblivion.
Watson.
Here's the thing. In the Emerald playthrough that we did, I made fun of Watson, but I love the idea of Watson, especially when you look at the other electric type gym leader that we had up until that point, which was Lieutenant Surge. And so at that point, it's like, wow, you went from like thoroughly bloodthirsty drill sergeant, especially perceived in the anime, to cute and cuddly Santa Claus-like old man. That's wow. Why did you go there? And I love Watson. I wish I could do more crap with Watson. So my favorite is Watson. My least favorite gym leader. I have to actually think about it, but it's going to actually irritate a few people. And it's just because she trolled me near the end. That is Claire from Blackthorn City. And it's only because I was this close to defeating her, and she went, no, I won't let you defeat me. And then you have to go all the way around and do this whole dragon cave and everything like that. And then finally she admits defeat. You could have just handed me the badge. You were like World of Warcraft before World of Warcraft. You were Thrall. You stole my kill. That's the way it goes. So, Shaytari, your favorite gym leader and your least favorite gym leader.
Least favorite. I'm gonna go with first, and I have to go with Lieutenant Surge as being my least favorite gym leader. While he was actually pretty like easy to beat in the games, at least to me he was. In the anime, I hated him. I did not like Lieutenant Surge, so he's like my least favorite gym leader. I have to say my favorite gym leader, I actually really like, and I just thought of this, is because my original choice was going to be Misty because I have a heartfelt love for Misty. I have to go with...
do most of us.
Yes. I have to go with Sabrina from Lavender Town. I believe that's the town that she's in because she had all the ghost
Saffron
Pokemon.
City.
Saffron, yeah.
Sabrina's the
Saffron.
Sabrina's the psychic gym leader.
I'm sorry.
She's in Saffron.
I'm sorry. I'm getting it wrong. Sabrina in Saffron City. Who had the psychic Pokemon. I liked her. All
right. So it's funny that Was Sabrina the one that was like the outright killer in the Japanese translation? Is that how that worked, Alex?
Probably not in the anime, but in the manga, I'm sure she's got her more brutal side.
I can't remember like when we did one of the like Vietnamese Crystal or something like that. You were telling me that Sabrina was like a straight up assassin for Team Rocket or something.
Oh, in the manga, she and Lieutenant Surge are members of Team Rocket, but that's manga only.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. All right. So we have our favorites, we have our least favorites. And it's funny that you brought up Misty, because this is another topic that actually was requested.
Wait, you haven't heard my favorite.
Oh, I thought we did. Okay, my bad. Go ahead. Sorry.
My favorite gym leader, it would be, let me see. Hold on.
He has to think about it. Oh no. He's got them all up right now. He's like, I could go with this one, but I do like the look of this one.
Well, I mean, technically she's not a gym leader, at least not in the one I'm thinking of, but it would be Iris, but mostly based on her appearance in Black and White too. I really like her team up or lineup.
Yeah,
there.
She apparently replaces her dad or something in that one, right?
In the first one, she is in Black and White. The Black and White one, she is the gym leader, but in let's see, or is that just Pokemon White? I don't know. It's been a long time since I played Pokemon Black and White. So, but mostly based on her champions, her outfit design is really awesome looking. I like a good costuming. I think it's pretty cool. Her character design's cool. I like her team, her lineup. Least favorite is Whitney, mostly just based on the fact that Goldenrod City is kind of your biggest. It's the wall that you're going to probably face unless you're smart and you go trade an Abra for a Machop. But I have no idea because I never talk to NPCs. So, but if you're smart, and you trade Abra for Machop, Whitney can be a piece of cake because that Machop is female. Fighting type is strong against Miltank. But if you're like me and you never pay attention to any of the NPCs, Whitney's a pain in the ass to fight.
Oh my gosh, she is. I forgot about her. I hated Miltank and doing rollout every time.
Yeah,
plus infatuation.
I swear there's got to be a story behind this, because something tells me, like, I'm literally picturing in my head Alex just in a remote corner of his room, just constantly losing to Whitney, and it's simply because he doesn't know that a fighting, like, not that a fighting type can win, but he's like, I don't know where to get a fighting type. This is literally just kind of screwed me. Where can I get a fighting type?
Yeah, I wish I could remember my first encounters against Whitney, but even just my most recent playthrough of Crystal, I was anticipating Whitney, and I tried as I might to prepare. I still ran into troubles with Miltank because Miltank will infatuate your opposite gender Pokemon. Now, I had Phanpy, I think or maybe it's Donphan by this point, maybe I evolved it, but either way, it was a male, Miltank's a female, so every few turns, I'm immobilized by love and roll out is kicking my ass. But I had a strategy. I spammed Sand Attack so it could at least have a really crap accuracy against me.
Well, but I mean, at that point, that kind of actually brings up an interesting point. Like, Whitney, I think to this day is probably the first ever litmus test kind of gym leader where all of a sudden you actually could hit a wall. Because in Gen 1, like, if you knew how to do the typing well enough, you weren't going to hit any walls in that. I mean, we've shown it numerous times.
Yellow. If Pokemon Yellow, you're playing Yellow, you're going to probably have troubles against Brock unless you know you can get Mankey and Nidoran, who can really be benefits to you.
The reason I don't think that's the case, and it's only because by that point typing was a thing. Like people would know what to do with it. I know that there were people that I went to because I didn't know how every type worked, and so at that point Brock might not necessarily be. I could see your point there, but even then the original Brock that didn't exist. So as far as like gens go, Whitney was a really cool litmus test for everybody to be able to kind of hammer their way through and kind of figure out, like, how do you beat a normal type gym leader and figure out, like, this is the typing that I didn't necessarily know all the weaknesses for. And one that I'm actually trying to think of, like, I don't know about the later gens, but I think Gen 3 doesn't really have one either. Maybe Norman. I would actually say Flannery. Flannery might be a little bit more of a litmus than Norman. Because by that point, you have something that can counter against Norman. Oh, well, it's definitely something that can actually be considered. But with that being said, so you said your best. Did you say your worst? No, worst was Whitney. Yeah, Whitney. That's right. Worst was Whitney. Oh, her speech must have been so satisfying to you when you finally beat her. He's like, ah! You're like, yes, try. I murdered your Milton. So the next question is, this actually comes from a Geek News listener who apparently loved when we brought on Shay last time, so much so that he'd like to bring up to me that there is a thing in Pokemon, and that is shipping. And it's funny that you bring up Misty, because now the next question is, whatever, in regards to the series, who do you ship with Ash? And I didn't know this. I've slowly begun to figure it out. There are diehard fandoms for pretty much every lead girl in Pokemon. There is no odd girl out who doesn't get them.
Nope.
Which is really weird to me because Iris has a very hardcore following.
Pokemon is slowly turning into a harem.
No harems with the 10-year-old girls.
No.
No. So at that point, who do you think is Ash's true is his true ship? Who is his one person that would actually make him finally forget his journeys, go and settle down and raise all of the various Tauros that he has in his backyard? For me, it's a no-brainer. I've made it very clear I am Team Misty for life. Team Misty will always be how that goes. In fact, one of the reasons that I kind of stopped watching Pokemon was Misty left. And even though like the episode is touching and everything like that, that was like the one step that I felt Pokemon could never do, because I don't care what anybody says. This entire series has been building up to Ash and Misty getting together. And then you had her go off and be the gym leader.
Yes.
You screwed up, Pokemon. You screwed up.
I completely agree. Oh my God.
So you were also on the team Misty?
Misty was supposed to be with Ash. I mean, come on. Let's be real.
We all bought the Pokemon CD. We all listened to Misty's song.
And we listened to her other song that also came out on another Pokemon CD.
Oh, yeah. The Christmas one, wasn't it?
It was a Christmas one. And there was another one, too. It was for... oh my God, I can't remember. It was I think it was on Totally Pokemon, and there was another song that is totally Misty singing. And everyone knows Misty was supposed to be with Ash. I shipped them together. I'm also with you. Also, I think a lot of people stopped watching Pokemon when Misty left, because everyone was like, "There's a new girl. Who is this May character you speak of? Yeah. Why is she here?"
Which is kind of a crying shame, because some of the other the girl characters that have come into Pokemon have had amazing personalities.
Yeah.
And so, and in those cases, they were actually really great to bounce off of Ash. And so I can see it from a writing perspective. You know, they kind of ran out of ways for Misty to bounce off of Ash unless you separate them for a year. And then at that point, they're different people. So then you could do that again. So I see why a lot of people have the love for the other ones, but no, this series set up Misty.
Because Misty's the original. She's the OG. And she came in with just a whole bunch of sass and attitude. She came in like, "I want my bike. You broke my bike."
She came in like, "I want my boy. I want my bike." And then she left like, "I want my boy."
And I remember, I think everyone, like, I think me and my friends were talking about this. They were like, "So how do you follow someone for like a good 6 months when you realize until you get your bike back? Like, when do you just give up and you're just with them for the journey?" Because they were like, I think after a while, it wasn't about that bike anymore. She didn't care.
No, it really wasn't. It really wasn't.
Misty was adorable. Like, she was cute, and she was just all sorts of sass. And she also like kind of knew how to handle Ash and how he was like in a lot of ways very, very stupid, and she would call him out on it, like, oh my God, you're just really stupid.
Hell, she knew how to handle Brock.
That too. Like, she would just grab his ear, pull him away from all the Officer Jennies and Nurse Joys. Like, come on, Lover Boy, let's go.
Like,
and
a lot of people don't realize Pokemon gave you access to lecherous characters from the very beginning, and that was Brock. So, like, he would always get crushes on either Officer Jenny or Nurse Joy. And wow, that family reunion I want a picture of, because it would just literally be like copy paste of all of them. But Misty had traveled with them long enough that she knew counters to Ash to get him to continue to better himself as a trainer. But then you also had the counter to Brock, so that the whole Officer Jenny thing didn't get old.
Yeah, not only that, but with Misty, you also saw the tension between them in, like, even the movies and in the show, like when they showed when Misty wore a kimono and her hair was down and she was looking real pretty. And then of course you have in, like, what was it? Pokemon the movie 2000, where she gets jealous of the girl when they chose Ash to be the chosen one. She felt
the best part in that movie was the confirmation. Basically, where she basically looked the other girl in the eye and said, "It's okay because Ash has got me."
Yes,
and everyone's like, "Oh, confirmed."
Everyone was waiting for them to kiss or something or admit their feelings, and it didn't happen. And that's when everyone turned to fan fiction to fulfill that for them.
Apparently me as well, as we just barely found out on the Pokemon Emerald playthrough. You guys will get to see the secret life of Drac, and apparently how he did a bunch of fan fiction involving Ash's dad. I didn't even know I did this. I can't remember it. Now I have a feeling, I know that Alex is going to go in a different direction, so I'm just going to go ahead and let him explain his Misty hate.
I don't hate Misty. Okay, yeah, I was on board with the whole Misty ship thing in the beginning. I listened to the song, and so sure, of course I wanted Misty to be with Ash. That's fine. I mean, I don't know. I pretty much don't want to bother with the shipping anymore because they're all, still like 10.
And the other problem is that now it's getting kind of creepy.
Yeah, so I mean, I still have I figured this was just gonna be a favorite female companion for Ash, but so in that case, my favorite female companion would actually be May. I always really liked May a lot, especially considering they do have to, even though they do have to repeat the gag of him destroying a bike to get a female companion to travel with him again.
Yeah.
I thought that was so, but I thought that was the most funny thing. That was so hilarious.
Didn't they do it with Dawn too? Where they had him wreck her bike as well? Like, why is there not a meme of Ash, wrecker of bikes?
I don't know what they did with Dawn because I didn't watch the Diamond and Pearl anime.
I forgot what they did with Dawn. Yeah.
But I do like May. I still have a soft spot for May. I've always liked her design. I really love her redesign in Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby. I really love what they did with the design there. So May would still be my favorite female companion. Of course, Misty will always have this special place in my heart as OG. Can't deny that. So yeah, I'll just say May. No, even though, yes, again, Misty's a thing and always will be.
Yeah, no, and there's nothing wrong with any of the other girl characters. From what I understand, like, I don't know a lot of them. I don't know. I know a little bit of Dawn's personality. I don't really know Iris, and I've seen a little bit of Serena. Yeah, she's Gen 6, where she's got the childhood crush on Ash, and forever she shall be known as Homewrecker to me. It's like the Kingdom Hearts fans with Lee and Kyrie. Homewrecker! That's Serena to me. I'm like, oh yeah, we went to camp together, and I had totally this big crush on you. No! You get sworn to Misty of Cerulean City.
I think I also have a soft spot for Iris because she's also just really funny too. From what I saw of like Black and White, she's a really funny kind of a character. But not only that, when they introduced like Iris, when I first saw pictures of her, when they first were talking about that new season, I was like, oh my God. She looks like me. Like that was my first instant thought. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I like Iris. I was like, she looks like me. Like, okay. I like creators.
And one of the things I've heard about Iris is that she's basically a mini Ash. And so at that point, they would really get along together. My only problem is that they were still sticking to the ideology that Ash was still 10. And so at that point, Iris was roughly about half his age. I'm like,
I know.
No. Especially one of the other things I've learned, I don't know if you've actually come across this, but you can't do Google image searches on any of these girls. You will not like what you get out of it, especially not Iris. It's not pretty. And so at that point, it's like, I can't even go talk about shipping Misty anymore because you guys have, the internet's ruined it.
Yeah. But I also liked how Iris came in. Like Iris, like they didn't have the whole bike thing with Iris. I think she came in swinging on a vine. Like she came in like a ton of bricks, and you're like, who is this girl? Like she's coming in like crazy, and she was just had a really awesome personality. So I also have a love for Iris. She was someone I actually wanted to cosplay at one point, and I just didn't know how to do it. And I was like, I like Iris. I think she's adorable. But Misty is always number one. Iris, I think, is number two. May and Dawn are, they're there.
I haven't come across these ones. If I had to pick like a close second, it would be the only other one that I've had contact with, which is May, and it's partially because May is kind of that, basically a fresh new take on Misty, where Misty was kind of tomboyish, and I'm not saying May isn't tomboyish, but she is definitely a lot more girly than Misty was. So at that point, you had this new kind of take, especially in the concept where she hated Pokemon battling, and that was Ash's Goku trait right there. Like that was what he liked to do. So at that point, you had like this really cool duality between the two of them, and then contests came into play, and she had something to be able to do along with everybody else. And so at that point, it gave Ash something to cheer for her about, instead of having to constantly hear, I don't like battling. So I do like the concept that they did do with May. And I actually did like that. I haven't seen it, but I've been told that May does come back, much like Misty does. So I'm happy about that one. And since we've already kind of done it, Alex, who would be your close second?
Close second, I'd say my close second would also be Iris. Even though I never saw a ton of her in the anime, but again, I have seen a little bit of what she's done in the anime, and I always thought she'd if the rest of the anime was better, I'd probably watch more of it just for Iris.
Basically what we're all saying is the crush at summer camp just didn't work for us.
Yeah.
Well, I never saw too much of Serena, but she seemed okay. It's fine.
I think I kind of lost interest with watching it once I saw the animation. That was like when Ash got kind of derpy looking, and everyone.
No, that's 7.
That was 7.
That's 7.
That's the more
so Serena is
okay. Season 7 was where everyone was like,
Brandon. Though by Black and White, they also did sort of the first of redesigning the characters to be a little more different. But Sun and Moon has really gone to the extreme with the redesigns.
Oh,
yeah. I would actually say it was probably earlier than that, because then we started having the default, like Ash rubbing his thumb on his nose, kind of like a default shonen protagonist kind of thing. And so that's what
just talking really design concepts.
No, I'm saying the design. I'm saying concept design, like updating and everything like that. It just started evolving probably around Gen 3, because combat also got better, and Ash's kind of characteristics became a little bit more defined.
Well, by the middle, that's a fun fact. It was like sometime in the middle of the Johto story is when they transitioned into digital paint.
Yep. All right. So the next question that we actually have is still sticking to the anime, and that is, because it has to be addressed, the movies. What is your favorite? And I'm going to go ahead and toss in a least favorite here, just so we can actually have more movies get mentioned. I have a feeling a lot of the later movies are probably going to get mentioned in the least, but your least and your best or your most favorite movie of Pokemon. For me, my best, I don't even have to think about it, Pokemon the movie 2000. That's the best that it ever got for me. The Power of One is, in my opinion, even though I still have kind of a secondary love for the Secret of the Unknown and like what they tried to do there, at that point, the Power of One did enough right as far as Pokemon mythos to me that it just has to be my top there. And this is actually going to be sacrilege, but my least favorite over the years has slowly become Mewtwo Strikes Back. And it's just simply because when you look at some of the later entries and the fact that they delved into story, Mewtwo just seems kind of lacking in it. And I know that that's kind of part of the whole deal, because the whole concept of it is like you get the backstory of Mewtwo and how he basically tries to take over the world, and that's the premise of it. But when you compare it up to a guy who's literally trying to capture the 3 birds to summon out Lugia and create the end of the world, or a little girl who gets access to Pokemon that can literally grant her every wish, and everything that she gets granted looks like a Cthulian horror on the outside. I mean, Mewtwo Strikes Back just doesn't hold up to me compared to what's come later. Even some of the Gen 3 movies, I would actually say, have better story and better look of it than, unfortunately, Pokemon the first movie had. So that's going to be mine. Pokemon the movie 2000 is best, and Mewtwo Strikes Back is worst. Alex, your best and worst Pokemon movie.
In terms of best, I'm with you. I really still enjoy Pokemon the movie 2000. Yeah, that would still be my favorite one. I really enjoyed it back then when I saw it. I really liked the introduction as we got more Johto Pokemon in the mix, as we began to transition into Generation 2 at that point. I liked the story. I liked the concept. So yes, Pokemon the movie 2000. In terms of a least favorites, I don't know. It's hard to say because I never watched any more beyond 3. I guess I'd just say 4 because I don't remember anything out of 4. I don't remember a single thing from 4. So it's just
4 was when they introduced Celebi.
4 introduced Celebi, and it had the time travel plot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another bad one.
So just 4. I still have the old soft spot for the first movie because it is the first, and it certainly was my first Pokemon movie in theaters, and good times had by all. Plus when you know the whole backstory that was the radio play that they eventually made into the animation, boy, that movie's dark.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with you on that one. Like the radio play adds a whole new element to it. Shay, your best and worst Pokemon movie.
My best,
this is the expert talking here. So at that point, the Pokemon Company will know that they done effed up when she says her worst.
My favorite one is definitely probably the first movie.
Right.
For me, it's the so many memories I have regarding that first movie. The excitement of when I realized a Pokemon movie was coming out into theaters. The enjoyment I also had of dragging my parents to see it, not once, but like twice or 3 times to see it. And also the nostalgia factor with, I think it was the second time I was watching the first movie in theaters, and it was the part where Ash gets turned to stone and Pikachu's trying to wake him up. There was this little kid in the theaters, maybe had to be like 3 years old, maybe, and he was going Pikachu with Pikachu while Pikachu was doing it in the theater, and it was so cute, and I gotta give it up for that one.
Nice.
As far as my least favorite, I think it's the Deoxys movie where they introduced the Deoxys.
Destiny Deoxys.
Yeah, it might have been Destiny Deoxys. It's hard for me to figure out like the later ones. I think because the later ones I didn't have as much interest in them as much as the other earlier ones. But I think like Destiny Deoxys was probably one of my least favorites. But I think if I had to choose a close second favorite, it's also Pokemon the movie 2000 because I absolutely loved it. And
yes,
yeah.
No, that Pokemon the movie 2000 to me is just like when we finally got a Pokemon movie that delved into not necessarily the mythos of one particular Pokemon, but of the world itself. Yeah. And actually saying like there was more to these 3 legendary birds that we realized there were. And so at that point, and even better, they connected basically they connected the 3 legendary birds of Gen 1 to the legendary birds of 2.
Yeah.
Basically just saying that this is a concurrent universe that is connecting into itself because you needed to have all 3 birds to summon Lugia.
Yeah. And it showed how all the world itself is connected through Pokemon. And that was one of the things that I think a lot of people enjoyed about the movie 2000. And it had a much better plot than the first one, but that also showed just how the writers got better with the Pokemon movies after the first one. And I think the first one was like their trial. Like, let's see if we can make a Pokemon movie that comes out in theaters and see how people react to it and see how people enjoy it. And then they got better with plot and storyline. Definitely with Pokemon the movie 2000.
Yeah.
Also, the soundtracks for the first one and the second one were totally like my favorites. I still listen to them to this day. I love the Pokemon.
Oh, I borrow my wife's copy of 2000 every now and then. I think actually when she told me this later, but apparently at our wedding, we didn't really have like all of the tropes of a wedding. We didn't actually have like a wedding dance or anything like that. But her and me just kind of agreed, like if we actually did dance, it would probably be to either The Power of One or to The Extra Mile, both from the 2000 soundtrack.
Yeah, I loved the Pokemon the first movie soundtrack. I loved so much because one of my favorite songs on there was also what was it? Wear a Miracle by Christina Aguilera. It was one of my favorite ones from the first movie soundtrack. And on the second one, I also enjoyed The Extra Mile. And I also enjoyed another song by, honestly, I can't even remember, but I enjoyed that entire soundtrack. I still listen to it.
Oh, yeah. There's the 2000 soundtrack has tons of them. The other one I like is Flying Without Wings.
Yes.
Power of One, Extra Mile. I even do like the remixed version of Pokemon World for that one.
Yes. I also enjoyed. Oh, on Pokemon the first movie, I enjoyed Billy Crawford's version of the Pokemon theme song. That was actually really good. One of my favorites. I still enjoy it, and I listen to it, and I'm like, oh, this just takes me back to that opening sequence of the first movie every time I listen to it. And it had a lot of like big time artists on that soundtrack. Like you had 98 Degrees, you had Britney Spears, you had Christina Aguilera, you had NSYNC, and it was just like. And you even had Emma Bunton from the Spice Girls on that soundtrack also. So it was like,
oh yeah, the cool part was you had all these all-stars, but then you also had like 3 or 4 tracks that were from up and comers. And so at that point they could establish themselves. And then a lot of people, I'm probably saying hers wrong, but I think her name was Citrus or something like that, where she did Come and Try to Catch Me from Pikachu's Vacation. And all of a sudden, like vitamin C. And she actually could note her popularity to that. Yeah. Like a lot of people went from Come and Try and Catch Me to her albums.
Yeah. And also didn't realize like until I started watching, when I rewatched the shorts in those like Pokemon movies, like Pikachu's Vacation, I didn't realize how many of the Gen 2 Pokemon they had like really introduced, like Snubbull and Meryl and everything else like that. And I was like, dang, like I forgot that they had really introduced a lot of these Gen 2 Pokemon.
Exactly. That was the other thing that was cool about the side movies is that you had introductions of more of the Pokemon that were going to be introduced either in that current gen or in a future gen. As they did with like Pikachu's Vacation, introducing Snubbull to people so that, people could see another Pokemon design that was coming out of a gen that was coming out soon. That was actually a really great advertising tool for them.
Sorry. I made a mistake. That was the Catch Me If You Can song was Angela Villa.
Oh, Angela
Villa. I love her.
Yeah, it was the first movie. It was the Vacation song from Pikachu's Vacation, which was Vitamin C. I got it mixed up.
Oh, that's right. Vacation's what I want to be. Yeah. So, the next question that we actually need to get into is this gets brought up from time to time, but we actually do need to discuss more the future of Pokemon, but really the reason that Shay is brought onto this thing, and that is Pokemon Go. Like the gens are still going to continue on. A lot of people think that Go is going to outlast the gens. Like they're running out of ways to be able to introduce new Pokemon, and Go is just an easier way to be able to do it. I don't necessarily buy into that, but this question is going to be more along the lines of the future of Pokemon. Do we actually see it being Go? Do we see it with like the anime not in the future of Pokemon? I mean, as we continue to celebrate anniversaries, do they go more down the side games? My personal take on the matter is Go is going to be a thing. Go is a popular phenomenon, so much so that if people have been reading game rumors this week, people might remember that Blizzard had the whole BlizzCon fiasco with Diablo Immortal, And now we're actually finding out that another mobile app that they're working on internally is a Warcraft equivalent of Pokemon Go. So at that point, that's how you know that it's a big phenomenon, because you already have other developers trying to recreate it. Need I point out the Harry Potter AR game that's still in the works right now, and I think it's already released, Ghostbusters World. So Go is going to be a thing. It's definitely solidified the AR gaming market. So I don't see it disappearing anytime soon. One of our chat members for the live chat here actually mentioned the rumors going around right now that I think are pretty much confirmed, that the Switch is actually going to be the console that houses the 9th or the 8th generation of Pokemon. Mm-hmm. I do honestly believe this is going to be a thing that happens from there on, and they will go console, because I think Nintendo is more interested in doing this console handheld hybrid than they are about like contending with the other two consoles on the market. This is how they want to make themselves unique, which is, I mean, it's definitely working. I'm not necessarily knocking that. So for me, I think the future is bright for Pokemon. I'm not necessarily, I know a lot of people think that the anime should finally end, and that should not necessarily be a facet anymore. I've even heard people talk like they should relaunch the anime, but not necessarily have it be towards training. It should just be like basically Pokemon Mystery Dungeon or Pikachu's Vacation, where the Pokemon interact with each other. I don't know if that necessarily would work, because here's the thing. A lot of us have that affection towards Ash, and there's a reason that they've kept the character around for so long. Every new up-and-coming 10-year-old can actually associate with Ash very well. So I don't think that's going to be going anywhere. But I'm not going to say that there's anything negative in Pokemon's future from my perspective. It's only going to get bigger. It's going to get better. They're going to find out other ways to be able to do this. I actually think, unlike a lot of people, that Detective Pikachu is a thing. I mean, if you're going to make a live action movie off of him, he's the thing. And so at that point, I think it's pretty much guaranteed. We're going to get more movies on this character. Shay, where do you see Pokemon going? Especially since you do play Go, and Go's had actually a lot of really good revelations and updates in the last year. Where do you see the Pokemon franchise going?
I see it going, at this point, I think the sky's the limit, because they hit the cash cow with Pokemon Go. Not really a cash cow, but they hit a whole new like spectrum of people being introduced to Pokemon. Because you have to remember, so many people have thought Pokemon was literally for children. Because if you look at the anime, it's been around for so long, and many of us who grew up watching it as kids are now adults. And while we may not watch it as much as we used to, or really at all, they've kept people entertained by introducing new games and new concepts. So with Pokemon Go, you had a whole new host of people that got introduced to Pokemon through Pokemon Go, and how you introduced AR with going outside. And so many people also became friends through Pokemon Go. They met new people. They went outside, so you weren't confined to like inside of your room or inside of a house the entire time. And there's so many, they call them Pokemon Go YouTubers, who are basically on YouTube, and they make videos about Pokemon Go. And there's several of them that have a huge following. And one of them in particular have said Pokemon Go was his first game that introduced him to Pokemon. So he had never played a Pokemon game ever. He barely, I don't even know if he ever watched the show. And so Pokemon Go was his introduction to it. So I feel like Pokemon is just the sky's the limit. And with them introducing Pokemon Let's Go, even though, I'll be honest, the reviews for Pokemon Let's Go have been mixed. People either love it or they hate it. And for the people that hate it, they feel like the difficulty that was with the previous Pokemon games is no longer there, because there's a lot of stark differences between Let's Go and the original Pokemon games. But what people have to realize is that the reason why I feel like the company made Let's Go how they did was because so many people are new to the Pokemon franchise and the Pokemon universe, that is to get them used to playing a Pokemon game that's not like Pokemon Go. That's why the catch sequences are so much the same, and it's not so much on the previous ones where you have to battle a Pokemon in the wild and then like catch it that way, where now you just encounter a Pokemon and you're able to automatically catch it, and it's based off of how good your catch rate is and things like that, and whatever Pokeball you're using at the time. So I just see it increasing and going from there. And I can also see them introducing new Pokemon, to be honest, the same way they did before, through the games because introducing them through Pokemon Go is a slow process. Like, even though they're just now on Gen 4, they haven't even released all of the Gen 4 Pokemon just yet. They're still releasing them very, very slowly through the game in increments, whether it's through a raid battle system, or if it's through like a research quest, or if it's through like, you have to use this to evolve it. And a lot of the things within Pokemon Go are also very different from the games. So I see it going anywhere.
So another question that I want to kind of add into you, because you've played both of them, and I think you've had a little bit more exposure to Let's Go than I have. So at that point, do we think that, despite the mixed reviews, do we think Let's Go is going to be another viable franchise within the Pokemon umbrella? Do we actually see, because of the mixed reviews, that you're going to get, like, I'm spitballing here, Let's Go, Cyndaquil, and Totodile edition? Like, are we going to get a Gen 2 remake that is in the Let's Go kind of feel?
I don't know about that one, because I feel like the reason why they did the whole Pikachu and Eevee thing is because there was the whole franchise of Yellow, and because there is the whole franchise of where when you did Pokemon Yellow, your Pokemon was Pikachu and your rival's Pokemon was obviously Eevee. So it was like, that was a great option of letting people choose which Pokemon do they want. But I feel like if they do it with other gens, unless they did 3 different versions, like letting you choose Cyndaquil, Totodile, or Chikorita version, it might get a little bit difficult. Like, I could see them still doing Let's Go, but still letting you choose which Pokemon you want as your starter, potentially. So, I mean, but Let's Go is such a new software and a new way to play Pokemon games in general that foreseeing it for other future gens is still kind of up in the air, because it really depends on how people are reacting to it. But what it seems like, for me at least, is I noticed a lot of people are choosing Eevee over Pikachu. And I think it's only because with Yellow, you automatically got Pikachu, but whereas this time you can play as Eevee.
And the only sad reality of that is that Eevee is kind of useless.
Yeah, well, but in the games, actually, Eevee can actually do a lot more, surprisingly, in the Let's Go Eevee.
Well, I was actually kind of surprised to see like the Eevee and Let's Go Eevee is actually more restricted than the Eevees you can now get actually out in the wild in that game. So like, you can't evolve your Eevee. That's one of the things.
The same for Pikachu.
Unlike other generations where they've slowly kind of added HMs and things like that, additional TMs that Eevee can learn, this has probably, when me and my wife looked it up, this one probably has the most restrictive move set as far as TMs and HMs. So you can't necessarily augment it to being like super powerful or anything like that. You're pretty much probably best sticking to the normal moves that it already knows, kind of thing. So that I can already see that kind of being a downside to it. But let me propose this idea to you, because this is actually where I see this going. The version, like the gen versions where you had blue and red and you had that highlighted Pokemon for each of them, I think that worked well for the time. And I think it still will be something that gets done in Gen 8. However, with Let's Go being what it is, I actually kind of see them going in a different direction. And this actually kind of goes into what somebody else is bringing up in our live chat. I don't see them sticking to the different editions anymore. And the only reason I say that is because I think it's not necessarily going to be picking out like a Pikachu for you to be able to travel with. It's going to be showcasing the world in a whole new perspective. So at that point, it's, one of the coolest parts about Let's Go is being able to showcase Kanto in a console format. So one of the ideas that I've talked about with a few other people is that they would do Pokemon Let's Go Johto. And then at that point, you don't have 2 different versions. You just have, if you have to port over Crystal or whatever you got to do, you just have Johto, and it's just a console reimagined version of Johto. You get the same 3 starters that you would get in Johto. And the difference is that they can just walk out with you if you want them to be able to do that, because I think their tech is there, but it's going through Johto. And then at that point, they would go into Gen 8, because then the core audience would get satisfied by that. Or in this case, Let's Go, and then we go into Gen 8, but then we would go to Let's Go Johto and then Gen 9. That way, because the Pokemon Company has got this weird deal where they're basically every 6 months or so trying to augment to a particular facet of their fan base. And that's a good model. And I think that's actually going to be very consistent for them, since the previous gens don't take a whole lot of work. All you have to do is just basically update everything. You already have the framework for Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova. You have all of that available. So all you have to do is just update it, kind of thing.
Well, I think what would make them, if they're smart about it, and I feel like they may not do this because of the fact that it would make things a lot cheaper for us as far as consumers is concerned. But if they went the route for Let's Go and made it downloadable content, so like if they kept the whole framework of Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, but then they released like Johto, but made it like downloadable content onto your Switch instead of like a whole new game where it's just like you keep going, you have the potential of getting the 3 starters, and you also have the potential of keeping going through Johto. Just like how it was when they released Gold and Silver. And while you could go through Gold and get the 8 badges from there, you could also go back to Kanto and also fight the gym leaders there. And then you just have 16 badges. I feel like that would be fun. That would be interesting. I feel like that would be definitely also more so hip with the times now of how a lot of games do when they have downloadable content instead of you having to buy a whole new game. But I feel like, honestly, if they did come out with another game, I want them to do a game where you can be on Team Rocket and you can be like the bad guy.
So you basically want the trading card game equivalent of like the Rocket Invasion?
Yes, I would actually love them to do what they did with Sonic for Dreamcast, where at the beginning of the game you can choose if you want to be good or bad. And if you're bad, you can be on Team Rocket. And you can try and fight the person who's like trying to like stop your plans and like ultimately take over the world. Like, I think that would be.
You know what? I'd play it. I hate to say it that way.
I would play that.
Yeah, I'd play it.
I would play it.
Especially if you added DLC to it where like Team Rocket falls apart and then eventually you get to choose to go to like Team Magma or Team Aqua and then that falls apart and you can
take over Team Magma or Team Aqua. You could take them over and just make Team Rocket bigger. Like I would
that too. Like the only problem is that if you did that, then like it'd probably have to be an MMO at that point.
Yeah.
Because it'd be way too big. All right. Okay, so Alex, where do you see the future of Pokemon going?
This is a tough question. I mean, Jay said a whole lot of really great things there, and certainly I think we can probably agree that the Pokemon Go factor is definitely going to be here to stay because that game did so well for everybody, and so they're going to take a close look at that. The most ideal thing, of course, would probably be to continue the sort of split. You have a core generation game that is more in the vein of anything of the classics, and then you have something that is like Pokemon Go. I think that seems like the most viable future for the franchise, especially if they want to be able to, well, continue to innovate on the games and also be able to please the fan base.
All right. Yeah. The other thing that I actually want to kind of bring up to you guys too, just because I have a feeling that this is going to happen too. The trading card game has not gotten a whole lot of love in my opinion. Like you still get expansions from time to time, and that seems to work with the Pokemon Company. Another thing that I could see them doing is with the rise of all of these different card game apps that are out and about. So you have Hearthstone from Blizzard, you have Gwent from CD Projekt Red. Magic the Gathering has been doing Magic the Gathering digitally for quite a while now. Elder Scrolls is looking to do their own card game. The other, I mean, another perfect example is Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been doing its card game digitally for a while. I honestly think at some point we're also going to see some digital love being done towards the Pokemon trading card game in the form of getting that as an app. I don't know, maybe I'm just smoking crack because to my knowledge, the only time that that's actually been done is way back in the Game Boy. Like they haven't done anything with it since then. And it makes sense to me that where they have this audience that would love something like this, that the Pokemon Company would eventually kind of cater to it.
Yeah, I feel like they would have done that by now, so I'm not counting on seeing a mobile version of the card game.
Yeah, I'm not really either, because I think one of the things that for me, especially as a kid, how I found the trading card game very difficult to play. Just because you needed so many of the energy cards to perform an actual attack with your character, with whichever card you place down. Like, it was like, you need 3 energy water cards to perform water gun. And that for me was what I found a little bit more difficult. And I see why I think a lot of people have gravitated to the other trading card games, especially Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game still has a huge following of people. You know, my boyfriend still collects and plays the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, and I still don't know how to play it. But I can't see it happening because of the fact that Pokemon has so much other parts of their franchise that are hugely popular. I mean, with Yu-Gi-Oh!, the trading card game is immensely, it seems to me, much more popular than the anime is.
Well, and you have a difference there where Yu-Gi-Oh! The card game is the popularity.
Yeah.
The gens are the popularity for Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, they might be more interested in augmenting those. So I see you guys' point. I still would like to think that they would do something along those lines, or at least experiment with it. But I could see you guys' point too, where it's not necessarily on their radar to do it.
Yeah.
The card game fans, like, I know that there's still a hardcore following for the Pokemon trading card game, but I also know that those TCG fans aren't necessarily calling for that. Like, I'm pretty sure they'd be surprised by it. And it's actually funny that something got brought up in our live chat, because this is going to be the question that we kind of end today on, is that, you know, Pokemon's origins are in the games, but we've already seen like a bunch of other offshoots that have come out of that. We've had the anime, we've had the plushies actually happen. We've had Pokemon Go. You know, Pokemon Go is a viable offshoot of the Gen games. So at that point, we've also had a bunch of games that have huge love, but never really got that love ever again. In particular, the live chat brings up Pokemon Snap and the fact that people have been screaming for years for a sequel to it. I even know that I found out on Reddit there's a diehard presence for a sequel to Hey You Pikachu. The Pikachu microphone game has a niche audience that people want it back. So at that point, what is the one franchise or like game series, anything like that, that you would like to see them bring back just once to be able to see if it would work well in this modern audience? And for me, that's not hard, because this is kind of the most addictive element of Pokemon for me. Ever since way back when I got a really nasty flu and rented Pokemon Puzzle League on Nintendo 64, I have wanted more Puzzle League games. And no, the Game Boy Color Gen 2 equivalent does not count. I want more than that. I want Gen 3. I want Gen 4. And so at that point, I think because puzzle games are still very much a thing. I mean, for crying out loud, Tetris owns the market. I would love to be able to see a return of Pokemon Puzzle League, personally. And if I had a close second, I would also say the Mystery Dungeon series, just because I think that was also a really cool franchise for kids to be able to get into gaming. Shay, what is one franchise you would love to see return in the Pokemon canon?
I think one that would be honestly very interesting to see return is Pokemon Snap. But the only way I could see it returning is if they did it in a mobile app version, similar to Pokemon Go. Because Pokemon Snap was fun when you first played it, but after you got to Mew, the game became a little bit boring after a while. I'm sorry for those who enjoyed Pokemon Snap. I also enjoyed it. But if they made it where it was a mobile game, with mobile, just on the mobile, on an app in general, similar to Pokemon Go, I feel like it would be so much fun, because let's be honest, we're all on our phones. We all take pictures. We're all using the camera. And I feel like it's also something that can get kids involved as well.
This is actually one of those things that blows my mind is not a function in Pokemon Go. because it's perfect for it. Like you have an AR game where you could actually see like a Charmander out in the wild and you could take a picture of it. One of my problems, and actually I was one of those kids that didn't like Pokemon Snap. And the main reason I didn't like Pokemon Snap was you were on a rail and it was fixed. And the only access to these Pokemon you ever got was from that rail. And I've never, like, around that time, I got sick and tired of rail shooters. I got sick and tired of rail picture games. It was crazy. I was done with it. And so this is one of those features that I've, to this day, never understood why it's not in Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Because it would take you off the rail.
Yeah, it would be interesting. And also, I feel like it would make someone, especially if you have a child that's very interested in photography, to be able to like use, like learn how to take pictures and learn how to like take pictures well and take pictures of other stuff. And it can make it fun for them, especially if they're already into Pokemon, to be able to take pictures out in the wild, go outside, once again, walk around. But then I feel like how it could also work is if you introduced it into where you could also like post your pictures so other people can see them, because then it can have where you can get editing involved, and you can have like, if you take a bad picture, how you can edit it and make it better, how you can use exposure, sharpen it.
How is this not a filter on smartphones right now, being able to put Pokemon into your picture or make you look like a Pikachu? How on earth is this not a thing?
I have no idea.
I don't know either. It's one of those things that blows my mind. Alex, what is one franchise that you would like to see return to the Pokemon?
Well, I would love to see Snap come back, but I'm not a mobile person, so which is sad because I know that's probably where its future would be. So in terms of a more likelihood, then I'd say let's bring back the stadium games and have once again find a way to, especially now, I think it'd be easy to have the
thing. Like, seriously, how isn't it?
It'd be so easy, I think, now more than ever to have them interlink with your games, especially if the games are going to start becoming more core on the Switch going forward, which is definitely looking like the likelihood. Then I'd say Stadium would be perfect.
Yeah, they have Pokemon Tournament, but it's Pokemon
that's
Tekken.
more of a it's more of like a brawler fighter. I'm talking more like, you know, the actual competitive turn-based stadium style gameplay that we saw in the original Stadium games. That'd be what I'd be interested in seeing return.
Yeah, I feel like if they did any other like off franchise game again and wanted to bring it back, I feel like they're gonna turn it mobile, just because so many companies are realizing that so many people have cell phones, especially little kids now have cell phones now, or they have iPads, that it's so easy to reach a broader audience compared to bringing it to a handheld or console system. Since it's like, if you don't have the console, you have to go out and buy it. And then if you have the console and then you have to buy the game. But with a mobile game, if you make the mobile game free, people will buy the coins for it.
I agree, but I think the problem that a lot of game developers are now coming across with, and this is a perfect example of why Diablo Immortal fell so flat at BlizzCon, is because unfortunately the other argument that comes into that is the predatory practices that the AAA developers will implement to be able to get things done. I mean, you know, on our podcast, we covered the Harry Potter Hogwarts mystery issue where you literally had to paywall your way out of Devil's Snare. And the problem is that AAA companies would, including the Pokemon company, would probably want to try and do this, where they would like paywall the crap out of everything. So I do think that it's something that they will consider. Don't get me wrong, Shay. It's just one of those things where AAA companies really need to figure out like that sweet spot, because I have a feeling if they did put out a Pokemon game laden with microtransactions, like say Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery or supposedly like Diablo Immortal will be, it's going to fall flat. And it's just because the gamers will already have the dogma against it.
Yeah, they would have to find a way for you to be able to get whatever money is needed to buy stuff within the game without actually having to spend money to do it. Similar to like how games that are super popular, like Candy Crush, for instance. Like Candy Crush has a huge following, and you don't have to spend any money playing the game unless you really, really want to. But you have where you can connect it to your Facebook, or you just wait a certain amount of time, and then you have the hearts you need to continue playing the game before playing the game again. And even in Pokemon Go, you have a way of getting Pokemon coins without actually spending money, such as putting your Pokemon in gyms and they come back to you and then it says you have 50 coins, even though there's a limit of how many you can earn per day. You know,
and that's what they need to find. They need to find that happy medium. The other thing too that I also think would be a problem, and it's just because other companies have had this issue too, is you actually have to put your heart and soul into that mobile game. All right. There's a lot of games out there that are just lazy can be. The only example I need to point out to people this year has been Command & Conquer Rivals. This is one of the pioneers of the RTS genre, and the map is literally that big. Really? Dang. It's just because, and on top of that, you want to buy a tank? That's $1. You want to be able to buy soldiers? That's $1. That's lazy design as far as a lot of people are concerned. Plus the microtransactions to just literally try and vacuum your wallet dry. That's what they need to try and avoid. And here's the thing: if there was going to be a company that did it, I would like to think that the Pokemon company would, because they do love and adore their fan base. And if they had a bad mobile launch, it would blow up in their face horribly.
Yeah. The only way, I feel like if Pokemon does another mobile game, it won't be for a while. Mostly because Pokemon Go is still hugely popular, but not only that, Pokemon Go still has its issues it has to get through, which are mostly server issues. So like so many people, whenever they have like their community days, so many people will encounter server issues. I know when it first came out, everyone could not get on this game. It was a constant server issue. And even now, like the biggest Pokemon Go fan base is in Asia. So like all over there, every time it's a community day, they are always getting a do-over or a different day because they always have server issues. And it's something that every single person who plays Pokemon Go is always like, fix what's going on here before you do anything else. So I feel like they still have to conquer that, because the Niantic themselves still has not been able to conquer that server issue because the fan base is so big and constantly growing.
The perfect example of it, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, it was Chicago, right? Where they did the Pokemon Go meetup, and then they had to issue out a bunch of refunds because they hadn't figured that out yet.
Yeah, Go Fest. People were so mad when they went to Go Fest because it was a mess. Because
and understandably so, especially if people like went out and paid hotels and everything like that, and then all of a sudden they couldn't do what they came there to do. Yeah,
so. I think the most place where they give out the most redo days is over whenever they do the Asia.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's the one that always gets the most. I don't think they've really ever done it for the Americas ever. I know the one time that they kind of everyone wished they would have done one for the Americas was during the most recent community day, and that was only because over where I'm at in California, over in the Bay Area, our air quality was super, super bad due to the fires that were going on, and no one was like, they don't know if they wanted us to go outside because of how bad it was. So everyone wished we would have got one. We didn't. We all went outside wearing masks.
No. The other one that's coming to mind was the first raid encounter in Pokemon Go was like in Times Square, and they had issues with that because of all the sheer amount of people that were blocking up traffic and everything like that, trying to participate in that.
Yeah, that's why now when they do like big raid battles now, a lot of the times they tend to, if you're getting a Pokemon that like is like Mewtwo, or right now that Pokemon's now Deoxys, you're sent an EX raid pass for a specific date and time. So I think that's kind of how they're starting to alleviate that issue. And it's no longer like, just go out and catch it. It's now like, hey, you've done these raid battles. This is your like surprise. You get to do it at this date, this time. And they're mostly on weekdays. So it's like never during a weekend. So.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time, but holy crap, guys, we've been able to talk Pokemon for a solid 90 minutes and be able to give you guys plenty of material to go off of. And before I kind of wrap things up, the one thing that I kind of want to point out that gets asked after big things like this, big episodes like this, is since you've already talked about it, does that mean that you won't talk about it later? Absolutely not. That's actually the reason why I did things as the Pokemon franchise this episode, is because then at that point, we can go specific. We can go with the anime. We can go with the games. We can go with Pokemon Go. We can go with the plushies. If you guys want an episode on the plushies, we can do it. I mean, Shay would already obviously volunteer for that episode. So at that point, like we can easily make them work. Plus later on, we can bring it back to the franchise. It totally lends itself well. At that point, maybe we'll just bring in a bunch of other hosts to be able to say like their opinion on the franchise itself, since now you know Alex's as well as Shay's. That's the cool part about the Why We Geek podcast and what I'm trying to do with it. But with that being said, we do need to kind of wrap things up. And first of all, thank you guys so much for watching the podcast, as well as to my panelists who joined me to be able to talk Pokemon with us. We love you, Brenton. We wished you could have been here. We have a feeling you would have had a lot to contribute there, but you had to go and see your movie. That's okay. We love you. We can't say anything bad about you because we love all the sassy senioritas right there, right along with you. But if people want to be able to get a hold of the various content that we produce, as well as be able to get our opinions on other questions that may not have been asked during this episode, Alex the Shadow Blazer, how do people get a hold of you?
Find me on YouTube. Shadow Blizzard 3000 is my channel, and I do anime-related content on it. And if you always want to be up to date of when a new video comes out, follow me on Twitter at AlexJShort.
And in fact, his most recent release is his review of Xenosaga the animation. You guys can check that out, as well as be able to check out the Draken Shadow playthrough of Xenogears, the game that precedes Xenosaga. So you have plenty of Xeno to be able to take in there, and it's all awesome. Well, except the animation. The animation has kind of some problems, but I will leave those to Alex to be able to discuss with it. And also, Shaytari, if people want to be able to get a hold of your content, specifically your Pokemon Go videos, your anime content, as well as ask any questions Pokemon related, how do they do that for you?
Yeah, so you can actually check me out on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Shaytari. And also on Twitter, which is also at Shay_Tari. You can find me on either one of those.
All right. And then also one other thing that I'd like to point out is that Shay is also one half of the Senshi Annie Girls podcast, and you guys can check her out on that as well. I can't remember when the last episode you guys did was, but I think it was about a month ago. Yeah,
about maybe about a month ago, we did an episode actually on Sailor Moon. So we finally did one on that.
You finally got to the Sailor Senshi.
We did.
What the podcast is named after. There you go. All right. And so the other thing that's cool too is that, holy crap, like Shay is probably one of the newcomers to the Why We Geek podcast, as well as to other things that have been going on. And man, it's actually worked out really, really well. So I want to thank the community for being able to welcome her in. And I always get worried when I bring new hosts in that they're going to get endless crap by some of the people that actually get brought in here. And it's been totally the opposite when it comes to Shay, when it comes to Brenton, when it comes to other people. So thank you guys so much for that. And go and check out her content. It is awesome. In fact, one of the things I've always loved is her Motivational Monday. And it's not necessarily a regular thing, but when she does bring it up, it's always helpful, especially for me when I'm stressed out of my mind and having to deal with changing kids' diapers and feeding kids and all that. It's good to have that Motivational Monday just to help me get through the Saturday that I'm on right now. So at that point, if you guys want to be able to get a hold of me, you can do so on Twitter at Drac2326. That's the best place to be able to get a hold of me, especially for requests about the podcast, and also for people who can join us on the podcast, which a lot of you guys, after having Shay come on and shown an anime, did just that. So much so, we brought her onto the Geek News podcast. Is she going to come to Run on the Ropes? I don't think so. But hey, who knows? Might actually happen. Not sure about that. We'll figure it out. But we're not pressuring you, Shay, or anything like that. Just it's like Brenton. We're not
Trust me, I'm open to it. I love being on it. It's so much fun.
No, what made that even better, and I'll let the community know about this. Like when you and me reached out, you're just like, oh, there's so many other subjects that I can talk about. I'm like, that's exactly what I want to hear right now. That's exactly what I want to hear. So yeah, that's the best way to be able to get a hold of me. If you want to be able to support the podcast, the best way to be able to do so is support the RSS feed, which is whywegeek.podomatic.com. And in fact, I'm going to recommend to everybody here, if you've listened to the live stream here, go and check it out when it actually launches on the RSS feed, because I have some extra stuff in store for the RSS release of Pokemon Why We Geek. So you guys can check that out. You can also support the podcast on social media by looking up the Why We Geek podcast on Twitter. For some reason, Facebook will not let me make a page on it. I'm still trying to figure that out, but as soon as we have one, I will let you guys know. And when we come back in December, we will actually be doing an awesome conjunction with the 12 Days of Anime event on YouTube as we take on nostalgic anime. So until then, for me, for Alex, and for Shay, we thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.